Oh my gosh, like, why did that just hit me so, like, out of the blue? Welcome at 7 p.m. right here on the UnX Network, your new mainstream, KUNX. Welcome, everybody, to Paranormally Blonde. You are here with me, Sarah V, and Dee Dee this evening. How are you doing, Dee Dee?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. You know what? It's Monday again. I'm just not even sure, like, the week just flew by. I'm not
It
even sure.
does.
Yeah, like, how are we already up on Halloween practically?
I know.
Yeah, it
Time
was
is
just
flying.
October 1st.
Yeah.
Flying, time traveling, right? We keep saying we
Yes.
want to do some time travel, and it feels like
Somebody
we are.
pushed the wrong button.
That's right. So let's get some hellos in real quick. Of course, we have our Get Haunted family here, Rob, Kyle, and Danny. Thanks, guys, for being here and supporting us. We have Melissa, and we have Travis, and we have Michael. Thank you, guys, for always being here and supporting us. We see you, and we love you like always. What? This weekend, Dee Dee? I didn't really talk to you this weekend. So did you do anything exciting, or did we talk and I just don't remember, because that happens too.
I actually don't remember this weekend. I have no idea what I did.
Yeah.
So it must not have been very interesting, but
Yeah.
I did have a delivery from Amazon, and it was one of Justin's books, a poetry book.
Oh.
And a black cat showed up as well at the same time. I don't think it was from the Amazon guy.
Yeah, right.
So, they're like delivering cats too. And so it's just a little kitten. He's like maybe 10 weeks old. He has just he's moved on in. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
if you guys didn't see it, she had the best post. She's like, just sitting here reading my new book, and this cat just is on my lap. It's like, okay, that doesn't look like the cats I know. And yeah, I love that. Listen, we were talking before the show, and black cats especially seem to pick their homes.
yeah.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do with that? Now you've got two chicks and a dude. Your cats he's got his little harem.
Yeah, he does. That's what my husband said. That's why he's not leaving. He's got no reason to. He's got food. Right. He's got two women.
That's good right. To go. And we named him Binks.
Binks,
correct?
Yeah.
Binks. I love that. I think that's awesome. So you've got a new family member. So welcome to Dee Dee's family, Binks. We look forward to many more pictures of you as he grows. So cute too, 10 weeks old. I love that. Sweet kid.
Like, he's so sweet. But my girls are kind of like, Gizmo likes to play with him. Gemini is really offended by the whole thing.
Oh yeah, so they'll get used to it.
Yeah,
they'll get used to it. So yeah, last week, if you guys were with us, we talked to Nate Elwell, and we had, we started the conversation about faking evidence, and that's always, it's a touchy subject, right? Like, people have a tendency to not like to talk about that, but look, some is faked intentionally, some is faked accidentally. They don't realize. But it's an interesting conversation in the sense that, when somebody puts out there a video that they want to kind of tear apart, right? Or not even tear apart. I don't like that word. I don't believe Nate really tore anything apart. He just says, this is my opinion.
Right.
What's yours? I just think it's always good to sort of look at that stuff, right? I mean,
oh, well, definitely. Yeah. And it teaches you that you should always go back, especially me, before I post something, I should spend some more time looking at it. So.
Well, and we shouldn't just fully believe, and we shouldn't fully disbelieve.
Right.
It's good to kind of go in there and double check what things, because there are some videos out there that just seem almost too amazing to be real. But it was an interesting conversation. I will say, although I did have some feedback that people didn't like the fake conversation, I will say that I also had many people reach out and say, you know what, that was pretty interesting. So, if you guys are interested, go check out his YouTube or any of his socials, really, and check out. And I do love that he does the apps, right? I know a lot of people hate ghost hunter apps. I'm not a hater of them. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying that they are capturing anything paranormal, but I do have fun with a few of those apps.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to have somebody sort of break it down and understand what it is we're exactly using, right? So yeah, it was an interesting show. So let's see. This week, we kind of have a little different topic. We're going to kind of talk about something a little different. I love the poetry aspect of what Justin brings. And if any of you have checked out his YouTube, he has some great videos out there that you can watch about just some mysterious stuff, right? Just all sorts of weird, of course, the Roanoke, missing Roanoke is very interesting.
Oh, topic. I love that topic.
Yeah, so we're going to be joined here by Mr. Justin Bienvenue. I don't know, that's my best French. That's my best French impersonation there for you. Welcome, Justin, to the Blondes.
Thank you.
We're super excited to have you.
Glad to be here.
Let's just start with this because you have a lot of little titles under your name. So you have written books, you have poetry. What other types of books do you write?
I mainly write horror and poetry.
Okay.
I also have a crime thriller out there, and I also have a book of short stories and a book that is a steampunk novel.
Okay, that is correct. He does have steampunk in there, which I've always been a huge fan of. Just
yes,
it's one of my little what's the word? Secret shames. I don't know, not that it's shameful, but
no, it's fun.
I love the steampunk thing. I think that's very cool. How did you, Justin, marry horror with poetry? Oh no.
Oh.
Did we lose him?
He's a little frozen.
Well,
oh.
Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yep, we can see you now. You were just a little stuck there. We got you now.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. So when I wrote my first book, The Macabre Masterpiece, I decided that poetry had been something I've been writing recently a lot at that time. And I had a lot of horror. So I just kind of figured I'd combine the two passions that I had of poetry and horror. And Edgar Allan Poe was always an inspiration of mine. So that's what really made me decide to go in the horror poetry direction at that time.
Oh, I love that. Dee Dee, you got a book. Which book do you have of
I got the for people who can't actually just listening, but it's The Macabre Masterpiece. So this is your first book, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I've been pick a poem.
I did.
Okay.
So if you guys may not know, but I am a sucker for poetry. I love all poetry. I probably own more poetry books than anything else. And so when it combined like kind of horror, paranormal, and I picked the most paranormal poem. I mean, I just can't say there's anything better than that. So the one I picked, it's called Chambers of Fire. And it's echoes carry throughout the empty entrance way. Smears of blood stain upon the walls of gray. The corridor lit up every 5 feet by a torch, burning swiftly and calmly with a scorch. Off in the distance, a white mist appears. The further you walk, the closer it nears. It soon goes away as fast as it came. From every direction bursts flame after flame. The entity returns, but you're unaware. You're too busy getting lit up like a flare. The more you fight, the hotter the flames get, intensifying the burning, increasing the sweat. You manage to escape, but at the end of the hall, notice that it's not over at all. Up ahead, more flames, wild with desire. There is no escape from the chambers of fire.
Very nice. So what sort of set that poem? Like, what was the tone there for you, Justin?
Definitely eerie, definitely creepy. It's been a long time since I've even heard that poem. Never mind if I remember how I remember coming across the idea to write it. So, but
wow.
usually,
so is this like a creative thing? Like it just flows out of you, and then once it's out, it's sort of like, does it dissipate from your mind because now it's on paper, or?
So I have like two creative processes when it came to the horror poetry. I know some of them were already written, so it's just kind of like maybe something I had seen or heard on television. And I know at least 15 poems. I do remember this, even though it was quite long ago, but I do remember I came up with the titles first. And I had no idea, like just because I had the title there meant nothing. Like I didn't know what, like if one title, like Chambers of Fire, like, okay, like that could be literally anything. So sometimes the title would be direct, so I would write the poem directly based off the title. Other times it would be titled something and it would just completely different turn that neither myself nor the reader, whoever, comes across to read it, would know what they would be reading.
Dee Dee, you write poetry, correct?
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask, because I've written poetry, and it just like, I'll just sit down and write it out. And I literally have to go back and read it to see what I wrote, because I don't even know. It just literally flows out like in 2 minutes. I'm done. Sometimes I'll go back and rework it a little, you know, if I want to like add something, but a lot of times I don't. But when I lived in that house that was haunted when I was in my 20s, I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago, is that I used to write really weird, dark poetry. And I would like even cry when I would write it. And I feel like I was being influenced by either the energy of the house or just living in that house. I don't know. Do you ever feel like you're influenced by something outside of yourself writing the poetry?
Yeah, I mean, at times I would say at times, yeah, I find myself writing something and I'm aware of it because I can see it, but at the same time, I look back at it kind of like what you just had said, and I'm like, wait, where did this come from? Because
Yeah.
like it's a part of myself that it came from, but I don't know where that could be because I usually get it from a certain place, and maybe there's like a dark corner there that just
Yeah.
kind of like
that it
spawns
needs to
itself
come
out of
out of.
nowhere.
Yeah. It's almost like a form of journaling. Instead of journaling,
I like what Michael Greer wrote here. He said automatic writing, question mark. You know, and it could be a form of that a little bit. Perhaps you are influenced from behind the veil, that, you know, like you said, just in the darker corners of our mind, that just something that needs to be expressed. And maybe that is, you know, something that just needs to come out. Yes, I'm sure, Rob, you are quite the poet. I am sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to see some of those poems.
Yes, this is a family show. Let's keep it clean. So Justin, how long have you been writing poetry?
He froze again.
I'll say maybe 2008 when I was in high school.
Okay. And you also talked about you have a thriller. So was poetry first for you and then you got into story writing, or was story writing sort of always been something you'd like to do?
It's funny because my family and some friends when I was younger had said, like, you know, he can really tell a story. Like they would my teachers would tell my parents, like, oh, he can tell a story in such detail. If only he could. Little did I know that I would take that and run with it. And I started writing poetry, like I said, in high school. And after I published my first book, it was then that I realized that I wanted to write not just poetry, but horror. And then why stop at horror? I also like crime. I also like others, like just sci-fi horror. So it kind of just picked up from there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's, you know, I always I think it's almost romantic when you add that poetry to the paranormal aspect. And do you find in your books, Justin, when you're writing the stories, do you have a little bit of that poetry flair in there as well when you write? Like, is that hard to depart from while you're writing a story? I feel like poetry writing is it's a beautiful art form, right? And but it's very different than writing a book or a story, right? So is it hard to get out of that mindset to write the story? Do you sort of combine those two aspects?
I would definitely say I don't think it's not hard, except like the first thing when I'm writing a story, I'll actually say to myself, all right, Justin, you're not writing poetry, so you can write straight across. You don't have to write straight down. And then I would say, like, there was actually one point in one of my books, where I actually wanted the character to recite a poem. And I mentioned this to a friend, and they were like, no, you can't do that. You're so used to writing poetry that you want to put poetry in your stories, in your books, and you just keep them separate. And I was like, I really want them to read this poem though. The character, it would be perfect for them. And they're like, all right, he's like, go get some more opinions, and then you can decide. And most of the people were kind of in the same agreement, like, just keep poetry separate, you know, like.
But I like that idea of
I do too.
Right, I did too. Like,
as a
what I get for
reader,
listening to the masses, right?
Yeah, perhaps you should try your next book and do that. I think that why
follow your
couldn't
heart.
you write a story about somebody that was into the more paranormal poetry or horror poetry, that, you know, and they're either writing that poem or they're reciting that poem to somebody? Why couldn't you add that in a book?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea. Well, I'm excited, Dee Dee, for you to tell. I've never been, I was never good at writing poems. I can do rhymes for kids' books, but very different, very different than I think invoking those vibes, right? Like as you were reading that poem, Dee Dee, to really bring that in and to kind of get you picturing what Justin is writing.
Yeah.
It takes talent.
Yeah, I think that some people have that natural tendency to write poetry, but it's like for me, I don't know about Justin, it comes from times where I'm usually the times that I feel the worst, the darkest moments, you know, when I'm just done, I write my best poetry because it's pulling out things that you just don't say, but you're turning it into like these beautiful words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of like, that's how it works for me.
Would you, Dee Dee, qualify your poems as more like Justin's, where they're more of a horror poem, or would you just consider them darker? I don't know. I feel like poems tend to be darker anyway.
I think so too. Yeah, because happy poems are never quite. Yeah, the darker one. Look at Edgar Allan Poe. He's, you know, I mean, what poetry does everybody gravitate towards? You know, so yeah. I think I would call mine dark. They're not paranormal, but they're definitely dark. Not all of them, but some of them.
Maybe you can put that on the blog. We would love to see if you would ever want to share. We would love to see some of yours as well. Justin, let's talk about then a book that you have, your thriller that you've written. Like how do you pick the subjects, or true crime? How do you pick what that interests you? How do you pick them and then go, I'm going to write a book on this?
So I'd like to tell you how my mind works, but even I don't know, because sometimes I'll come up like for the crime thriller, Opium Warfare is the title. I actually was reading something I had no idea for a story concept. I didn't know I wanted to write a story. And I was reading something on the military tactic, guerrilla warfare. And later in the day, I was reading something else on opium. And for whatever reason, my brain decided to take opium and warfare and put them together. And I got Opium Warfare, and I'm just like stuck on these two words. And I'm like, that would make a great book title. Heck, that'd make a great book. That would make a great crime thriller. And I was like, and after that, I just started brainstorming, and eventually I got a concept.
One up. You made this one up, all like everything in your book. Is it all from your mind, or is it based on something?
That book in particular, I think there's a little bit of like the opium wars, like the real life opium wars from China.
Sure.
But other than that, it's pretty much like what I came up with, and like maybe like other things, like certain little elements here and there, but mostly me. Yeah.
I like that you choose a title, which I think, I mean, I don't know. When you say that, it sounds like that would be easy. Pick a title and just go, that's my muse. I'm just gonna go with it and let it flow. But also hard, like go, this is my title. I mean, Opium Warfare. Like I know that can probably go in a few different directions, but to do a whole book on it, Justin, I think that's I mean, do most authors do that? Do they choose a title first? I don't know if I've ever heard this.
Not that I know of. I know I know a couple of author friends who've actually written full-length novels, and they're like, okay, hey guys, I need help on the title. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, how have you not come up with a title? And they'll come up with, and the thing that really just kind of irks me is like, they'll be like, okay, these are the ideas that I have for a title now. And they just seem like they've already been done, or they just sound so cliche. So I'll every once in a while I'll help them out. You know, it's like, here, like, what is the main story about? And is there a word that's coming to you right now? Is there a word in the book that just keeps coming up and it's really gripping? If so, go with that word for the title.
Okay. There you see. I get the vibe I get from that, right? The vibe I get from that, Justin, is almost like you're reaching out to the other side. I mean, Michael, you're spot on with the automatic writing. It's almost like you're saying, like, what word comes to you? I mean, are you leaving it to the, universe or to something behind the veil to sort of help carry that story forward? I don't know. This kind of has that, I don't know. Is it because you do paranormal poetry? I'm kind of getting that vibe here a little bit. That's very interesting.
To be fair, when I first started writing poetry, I never titled my poems. And I looked back on them. I ended up making a whole folder And I was like, why did I not title these? And then now I do the exact opposite. I'll come up with the title before I start writing the poem.
Now you're worried. Now you're like, oh, that's right. All right, so let's touch on, so you do have this YouTube channel. And you do these, you do these topics, and you kind of give, and I started to go through them and watch them, and, interesting topics. So do you give sort of your theory in all these videos? Like, so let's go with the first one. If you go to his YouTube page, the first one that pops up, I believe, is the Roanoke one. And so you'll kind of give a quick like synopsis of what the topic is. And then you're like, and here are my 5 theories. And you sort of, I believe, I don't know if you list them. I don't know if I caught this. Do you list them in sort of the more possible to the more extreme, or is that sort of how you list them down?
I believe they just are like based off like whatever theory I come up, like if I read the theories, I just come across them. Some of them might be in order, some of them might not be.
Okay. All right. Well, let's touch on the Roanoke thing, because it is an interesting topic. And if anybody sort of goes into that, and there are movies made about it. They're American Horror Story. They did their little
that's the version I know.
Yeah, right. So you had 5, I believe 5 theories on that one, if I'm not mistaken. So you had probably the most possible, which they were met by Native Americans, that might not have been a good meeting, right? And perhaps ended, I think you even possibly put cannibalism in there as to why they were not found, right? And then you also had the theory of meeting Native Americans, but it being a more friendly meetup, so they assimilated and they probably moved on, right, to I don't know why I cannot think of the third, if that one was they just moved to another location altogether. And then you had aliens, which is so interesting. And then you had zombies. Very interesting. Yeah, like it was kind of interesting.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, let's go through the theories here a little bit on the Roanoke topic to sort of understand, like, where did you pull some of these from, and where your mind went with these.
So I remember this has always been one of those topics that, like, it doesn't come up with, you don't find yourself with your friends talking about it unless it happens to come up in some way. And I remember I had read before I did the video, and I forgot what the article was. I apologize, but they were coming up with these theories. And no matter what theory I came across, I was always set on mine. And I've had the same theory, like my conclusions about Roanoke have been since I was like 15 years old when I first heard about it or whatever. And that was that, the word Croatoan was carved in a tree, and this was the tribe, and the tribe took them. And I've given this theory to a lot of people, and they're just like, that doesn't make any sense. Or why would they just leave something carved in a tree and leave? And I'm like, why not? Like there's crazier ideas. And I know the cannibalism one, that one I had actually come across in an article. And I think the zombie one, obviously, that one's kind of a little bit alluding off of the whole cannibalism aspect. But
were any Native Americans cannibals? I never heard that. Have I?
Oh, I think absolutely some probably. I mean, I would think for survival or just like you think about time frame. I don't know. I mean, I would think. I feel like you definitely hear it. If you drop down Mexico
in South America,
right? So I don't know. I mean, could it be that far fetched? Maybe I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I'm just not so proficient in my history on that, but I definitely don't think that it would be out of the realm to think that, and not necessarily because they just wanted to be cannibals, right? They could have been more of a survival technique, right? And you would eat what you could possibly eat. So I
don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up.
But when you talk about the zombie part too, I feel like you weren't claiming, and I think you even said the movie, you're not claiming Night of the Living Dead. We're not talking about everybody became zombies, right? Are we talking more of a any kind, are we talking like a virus that could have had people going off in different directions, and we use that term zombie? Like when you say that, kind of what were you thinking on that?
I would say more along the lines of like actual like zombieism, like in the whole like
Oh,
voodoo practice type of thing,
okay.
which could date as early, like I know like the Haitians were
Hmm.
very much into zombieism. In fact, I actually just saw a show on zombieism just before I did this video with you ladies, and but I think it's more along the lines of like real life zombieism, which isn't like the whole typical like Night of the Living Dead,
Right.
dead bodies rising, like nothing like that, but like the whole practice, the whole like witchcraft of it, if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
So what exactly are they? They're people who are like, what are these zombies?
So I would say like, well, they're undead, but like at the same time, they're almost like made to become comatose. So
Okay.
in regards to Roanoke, it could be just that the tribe that they came across had
Hmm.
these practices and they could have just kind of like hypnotized them, made them comatose, made them
Hmm.
half dead, and just
Hmm.
they just
Did you ever,
reacquainted with a new type of life.
Dee Dee, did
Oh.
you ever see Serpent in the Rainbow? I feel like that's
No.
it's a very
Oh,
interesting movie, and it kind of has that feel, correct? That's sort of the mindset. They
yeah,
sort of drink
yeah,
this specific drug or concoction, and it sort of would lead you to believe somebody was dead, but they're really truly not
Oh.
dead.
Okay.
But when they come back, people freak out because I think it slows down all your heartbeat and all that kind of stuff. So you appear to be dead. Um, I feel like although Roanoke is a very popular topic, why do you think more people don't dig in, or do you find a lot of stuff out there about Roanoke? 'Cause I don't feel like it's talked about a lot at all. Is it
it's
because
really
it's so
not.
open-ended? Yeah, is it so open-ended, and does it not give enough of that scary flair? I mean, you're adding it. You said your UFO theory was perhaps they lined everybody up one by one and brought them up and took them off. I mean, but how do we know that more civilizations like that didn't a settlement didn't happen and then just disappear? I mean, that they're not the
Yeah.
only one to have disappeared, right? We just know somebody came back and his whole crowd was gone, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, lucky him.
It'd be a little confusing, right?
Yeah.
You come back, you're like, oh, hey, where'd everybody move to? It might be telling of what type of person he was. Maybe they're like, okay, when so and so leaves, let's all get out of here and go
Yeah.
back up somewhere else. Maybe that's a theory. Maybe they just didn't like
I
them.
like
I
that
don't
one.
know. I don't know. So tell us. I know Dee Dee, you had mentioned, that Justin, you are interested in sort of that mysterious deaths or locations that have some mysterious deaths. Can you give us an example of one of those locations?
Absolutely. I know that really two locations I really enjoy are I'm going to butcher the name of this. I always do. The Dyatlov Pass incident in
Okay.
Russia that happened in the 50s, and I believe it was 6 or 7 hikers, and their body was found, and their tent was mangled, and they all had died, and one of them had their tongue cut out, and they all died of mysterious circumstances. And I give a bunch of theories on that too. And to this day, nobody knows what happened to those 7 hikers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some
And
there are some excellent movies out there about this. Not all factual, mind you. Some of them take some creative licenses, but let's go over some of your theories on that, because that is a real. I mean, do we really know what would happen if you were to hike these mountains in these extreme weather patterns? What does happen to our psyches and something like this? But what are
Oh
some of
yeah.
your theories, Justin, on what did happen to these poor hikers?
well, the first one is obvious, like hypothermia, because it was just
Mhm.
so cold up there in the mountains. So naturally, you would just assume like, oh, they just died of hypothermia.
Mhm. Mhm.
Another one was that there was we'll say a beast, although some
Okay.
could take it further and say, oh, it was a Bigfoot slash Yeti
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
up there. Some say the government themselves, had was a conspiracy against these hikers because they think that the government was like a couple of miles away and that maybe one of the hikers came across it and the government was like, well, just in case these people see something, let's eliminate them. Also radiation poisoning, alien abduction. But again, like out of the 6 or 7 of them, they all have different like bruises and gruesome wounds on them. And I mean, it almost seems like they all died in different ways.
Yeah.
Which is just even more bizarre than the whole thing itself.
I don't know if I've ever heard the government part, but is there something there in those mountains that would sort of lead us to believe that something was going on a little nefarious? Not that governments are ever nefarious.
I'm not really sure. I just had read, I think I had read in one of the things I'd researched, and they had said that perhaps the government was in the area right around the same time that they were hiking.
Yeah. And Rob, I do remember that, how they would run into the night, and like, and it did appear, because some of them were undressed, correct? Some of them, let's go back to one of our, Deb, my sister here is saying government sending sound waves. The other thing, like some of the things that you start to, if you look at some conspiracy theories, there's some very interesting things that does mess with our minds, and who knows if they were up there performing something thinking they wouldn't come across everyday people or people doing something like that, right? And then suddenly you come across that.
Well, and they cut them up and did bad stuff to scare anybody from going back, which back then probably worked. Now that brings people.
But weren't they having a hard time with the wounds? I mean, they didn't seem like an obvious, I mean, if it was, let's say if it was government, I mean, they'd have to get pretty tricky with how they were wounding these people, correct? I mean, some of these wounds were kind of baffling, if I'm not mistaken,
like especially the woman who got her tongue cut out. Like she was the only person that had her tongue missing. Like how can you, even if you said hypothermia, how can you possibly explain for one person out of the 7 or how many there were with her tongue missing? Like that's baffling.
So it was missing. They never found her tongue.
I don't remember. I imagine I don't know if they found it.
Yeah. You know, let's go back though to, we had the amazing Steve Stockton, who does missing people and in the forest. And, you know, it is interesting when you start to hear sort of what happens to our minds as we're up in these locations. And now, you know, he talked about the change of the weather patterns when you get stuck, you know, in the crossfires of where all of a sudden this weather quickly develops and it catches you off guard, and how people just do kind of strange things. So could it have been at all that the people that were doing this hike, well, it's not a hike, this climb, could they have turned on each other?
Yeah.
That's absolutely a possibility.
I mean, I don't know, you know, if you start to think you see things, were they starving, were they dehydrated, now you're cold, if you think somebody, you know, if they think they're seeing something, if, you know, Dee Dee and I are climbing up a mountain and suddenly I think, you know, Dee Dee's a monster and not Dee Dee.
You start hallucinating and freaking out.
And could those, I don't know, did they do, when they did the autopsies, I'm assuming they must have, correct? If they did autopsies, you know, could they pinpoint some of this stuff? You know, could they say like, I've heard the alien aspect of it. I've heard the Bigfoot or Yeti, or I'm not quite sure which one he is in Russia. I apologize. But like, I've heard that aspect. I don't know if that one feels as possible to me. I know the alien thing, but the alien thing could also sort of work hand in hand with the government. Right? If there were some sort of alien government connection there. Yes. Oh my gosh. Devil's Pass is good. There are some excellent movies out there.
Like maybe the government paid off the aliens to take them out. Like,
I mean, you know, or you suggested though, if the government is doing something in these locations, and somebody happens to stumble upon it, and you know, and then the aliens are like, well, there's some free people to take. I don't know. I don't know.
I haven't heard of abductions being that violent though. Maybe I just haven't heard enough.
I don't know. And have we really heard of them outside of the missing 411 or Steve Stockton's missing people, you know, in the forest? I mean, do we hear a lot about that in that situation, like mountain climbers, you know, there are a lot of people who climb mountains. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
Do we hear any aspects of that sort of theory when it comes to UFOs? Justin, are you knowledgeable in the UFO topic to know? Like, is that something that happens up in the mountains a lot?
I mean, aside from this incident, I haven't really heard of any other incident where like someone's climbing a mountain and you don't hear from them
Yeah.
a while, and another person's like they got abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
So I mean, but at the same time, like mountain peaks and certain structures are
Mm-hmm.
said to be like staples for like UFOs. So
Okay.
I mean, maybe if it's a high enough mountain peak, that could
Sure.
obviously bring up the whole idea of UFOs and aliens.
When you said who said radiation poisoning, where would that have come from? Do we have theories on that?
Uh, again, you hate to throw the government into every single thing, but I mean, maybe the government,
Yeah.
or maybe like the area that they had settled in,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there was like something radioactive, like
Okay.
again, a couple of miles, and one of them came back and they were exposed and they ended up exposing the others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Does anybody remember? Because this is the part that I don't remember, and I apologize. What were they setting off to do in the first place? What was the purpose of this climb? Were they moving their settlement? Was this truly just, or was this some sort of a study of some sort? I can't remember now.
I believe it was a study of some sort.
Okay. Yeah, if
I
anybody
go
on the
with what
side,
Michael says. Yeah.
What's that?
Secret government facility in the area.
Yeah.
I don't think it was probably UFOs. I would think it was either they ran into somebody they shouldn't have run into.
Mm-hmm.
Could have even just been like one of the biggest fears I have of the forest, out of all the fears of the forest, would be that you run into like somebody who is a murderer, who's hiding out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could be the same thing up there. They could have had, you know, I don't know how desolate it was because I don't really follow this whole case that much other than the shows I've seen. But they might have been staying up there and these guys happened upon them and then they killed them all, you know, in a brutal way because they were, you know, that way.
Yeah.
I mean, because if one of the people there, they would have had to kill themselves too. So then who did it, you know?
But
Exactly.
if you're in that situation and if it felt like it was, if you felt you had no, well, I'm not a super big survivalist. I would be the first one to be like, I'm done.
Not going on that trip. Yeah.
So, you know, but could you, if you started to see this stuff happen, or if you lost your mind, would it really be that far-fetched to think that you maybe would take your own life?
Yeah, well, that's true. You would think that's usually how it goes. Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
I would perhaps. So out of the other videos, what is another interesting topic that you sort of like to dig into? Like you did the past, you've done Roanoke. What's some more that you sort of like to, you said true crime, do you add those into your videos as well?
Yeah. So I would say since you mentioned crime, the Cecil Hotel is one that I did a whole, I think it was like last Halloween or the Halloween before that, I did a whole hour-long special on it just because there was so much crazy stuff that happened there. And I even said like I might do another video on the Cecil just because like why not? There's just so much info.
Yeah. Did you focus on Elisa Lam or did you go through the entirety of what this hotel has sort of brought?
I did all of it just because everybody and their grandma has heard of the Elisa Lam story. And also I believe Ghost Adventures actually covered that in great detail. So I did all of it between Elisa Lam, Richard Ramirez, Jack Ungerwanger, and even people just staying there in like the 30s and just deciding to, for whatever reason, go there to take their own lives.
Yeah.
What sort of is your take with this? And I always found the Cecil Hotel to be very interesting because you almost have to ask yourself, like, even if a location wasn't, let's take the obvious, the cliche out of that. A building was built on top of some sort of sacred land, right? And now this is your curse, right? Could a location just be filled with so much angst? Hotels sort of bring that hotels have a tendency, right? We're bringing people from all over, all different mindsets, all different emotional mindsets, right? And some people go to hotels when they're really down and out. Um, some go there for really happy occasions. What is your opinion, Justin, on the Cecil Hotel as to why it seemed to be a beacon for a lot of negative activity?
I definitely think it was either buried. I mean, they built it on like, tainted land, or maybe there's just a dark presence there that whenever it first manifested itself at the hotel, it never left. And every person that over the years that comes by, it just latches on and grasps to one of them. And, now it's got the reputation that we all know.
Yeah. Could it be a hell on earth? Could it be sort of that darker, right, thing that sort of is a magnet to those personalities? I mean, I don't know. I try not to get it's not a slam on anybody. I just don't try to get my history of these things from a Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters because it's a show. But I'm always curious, like when you see these things, I mean, we know with the case of Elisa Lam, it's a very public case, right? And we know she struggled with, I believe, bipolar and maybe even another, and she was on meds and all that stuff. So, and then it's not in the greatest of areas, correct? It is.
Oh, no.
Skid Row, right?
Yeah, so I want to go see it, but I'm terrified of the area. So
yeah. So, you almost have to wonder, and because, and now I don't know if anybody would know this information. When did when did it move into a bad area? Because it was not always, that would have not always been considered a bad area, correct? I mean, that was a nicer hotel when this first.
I thought I heard somewhere that it was like something about it was doomed from the start. I don't know if it was built like in 1930, right when everything crashed, but there was something that got it started off on a negative start. But I can't remember what it was. But there was something negative that happened.
I do remember when they built it, they had this whole like luxurious, like, hey, come to the Cecil, it'll be great. And then within like a couple years, that went right out the window because a bunch of crazy and weird stuff started happening.
Right. So it would be interesting to me, so do we feel it truly is paranormal, or could this be a collective of negative energy from the living people who just happened to show up there? I mean, Dee Dee, I mean, your theory of if this was doomed from the beginning.
Yeah. Right? And I think it's paranormal too. I don't know that the paranormal came about. The thing that makes it paranormal for me is that so many people that are murderers have chose to live there. It's just, it's a place that draws people in, but it's usually negative people. It draws in, I was watching the other documentary about it. It draws people in. There's certain places that draw you in, good or bad. And that's one of those places. Like I've watched videos on it. Well, I've watched a couple of girls. They're like teenage girls that went there and they stayed and that they were going through the halls. They took you all through the hotel. I mean, it might still be on YouTube, and it was really good because it was just they're giggling and getting scared, but you could feel it. And this wasn't even live. You could feel how that place, the dread of that place. There's just something about it.
Right.
That's why I'm interested to go and see if that's what it's really like. But I'm scared of LA altogether, especially that area. So
doesn't the Cecil Hotel now operate as apartments and like a hostel? Isn't it more of not a hotel?
I thought they were turning it into homes for the homeless. We have a large population of homeless people. I don't know if everybody else does, but we have a lot. And so they're turning it into homes for the homeless. So that's just going to continue because let's think homeless people, there's mental illness. There's things going on that have brought them to that point. People that aren't cared for. I feel there's a lot of special needs people that their families stopped taking care of them. And they're putting all these people together in this place that already holds all this negative energy. So it's just going to carry it on, Yeah.
I'm wondering, Justin, has there ever been a talk about knocking this location down because of its dark history? You're welcome. I'm curious. He's like, I don't want in on that. Really, at some point when you watch these documentaries, Dee Dee, like, do you wonder if it might be just best to get it gone?
I think so. I mean, the thing is it's a historic building. So I don't like the idea of tearing down any kind of a historic building. But whatever's going on, there's something, that entire area is just drawing in nothing but bad. And I don't know what you can do to fix something like that on such a large scale. You're not just going in with some sage and fixing that,
No,
So
don't have enough sage for that. Justin, do you know if any of the locations, and I don't know what the block looks like with the Cecil Hotel on it, but are any of the other locations that are there, any other buildings, are they tied into this darker entity, or does it sort of stay right there at the Hotel Cecil?
I've heard that it's pretty much just the Cecil because it's right across the way from what they call Skid Row, which is where all the homeless people actually are staying. Which before she had said it, I thought it was ironic because when Dee Dee had mentioned that they were going to turn it into places for the homeless, like I had heard like they closed it, and then you literally just walk across the street and you have these homeless people.
Yeah.
Cecil
And
Hotel
I remember hearing this, and I'm like, it's haunted, but I'm pretty to take this word literally. But they would kill to have a nice home to stay in, rather than be on the street.
Well, it definitely, the Cecil Hotel is an interesting topic. I think it definitely, when you take the most famous, I kind of think Elisa Lam takes the cake when it comes to the stories out of the Cecil. Even, some of the more famous serial killers, I think she still sort of takes, and maybe because it's a newer story, maybe because it's a little more relatable, because it could just be one of us that, right, you're going into this
not
location.
knowing where you're staying. I mean, she should have never been staying at that hotel. There are awesome places to stay in Hollywood. And I mean, why did she stay there? This is recent, And so that to me is a warning about when you're traveling to some place that you're unfamiliar with, you need to do your research, because I don't think that, and I personally, if anybody wants to know my theory, I personally think she was murdered probably by the maintenance man, because she was inside a locked water container. That's fine that, she went in, she took off her clothes because she's dry and everything. But how did it get locked? She locked herself in with what? Magic? So I think she was murdered, but people don't like to, I don't think it was paranormal. I think it was a murderer who's out there.
Yeah. Well, and there would be, it doesn't even have to be the maintenance man, right? It could be.
The maintenance man's going to call me now.
Yeah, right. They're like, don't go against maintenance man. You have against them, right? That's right. So do you have anything in the works, Justin, as far as, how many books are you pumping out in a year? Do you sort of have a goal for yourself, or do you feel like when a subject comes to you, that's how you write them? How do you decide that?
So at the beginning of last November, I finished writing and published the short story Emporium, and then I was also writing the Wax Papers, which is the third book in the Wax Factory series, and I was also writing my steampunk book of Gears and Gaslight. So I actually managed to write 3 books in the span of a year, and that was an actual goal in itself for me, because I'd never written that many books in a year. And I'll say this: I actually have my next 15 books planned out in my head.
Oh,
and it's not healthy at all. I know it's not healthy, but it's just, and as long as I can remember what the idea for each story is about, then it'll be fine. And I'm actually currently writing the 3rd book in the Macabre Masterpiece series. So more horror poetry.
I love that. Justin, do you ever take your horror poetry? I don't know if people do this anymore. Do you ever go anywhere to do readings? Like that would be a
open
kind of
mic,
interesting, like Halloween sort of thing. If somebody did that at a bookstore or a coffee shop. Like, do you ever go out on the road, so to speak?
I don't, but I do like the idea of that. That actually sounds like a really cool idea.
Yeah, they used to have them all the time, open mic nights, and you would go in, and sometimes comedy clubs would do that. They'd have a poetry night or whatever, and people go in and always wanted to do that.
Well, you just sort of think with Halloween, even if you incorporated that into, some sort of I don't even know, even if a haunted house, like there could truly be a place for that, a delivery for that, sort of set the tone of it'd have to be probably a very sophisticated haunted house, maybe, perhaps, Justin. This is something, I'm not sure what part of the world you're in, but you know, it could be something very interesting for people that, you know, sometimes that's the creepiest thing of all. When you read something like that, it really, that darkness sort of envelops you. And I don't know.
Well,
so how can everybody find your books? Where do they go to find Justin books? Oh no, we've got,
I think he's frozen again.
Well, seems to be everybody. Can you see me?
Yeah,
I can see you.
Okay. So so Amazon would be the best place to go, and or my website, which will essentially bring you to Amazon. And my website is justinbienvenue.com. So
awesome. And if you go to his Instagram, you will find a link tree there, correct? They can find how to find you as well.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. It's a great way to find his YouTube videos on these topics. Is there anything you would like for our friends and our family that are watching, like a little something that you would like them to know about yourself?
I mean, I'm a very creative person. I like the unknown, as we've been talking about, and I like to come up with ideas
like, top secret.
as best as it's good enough to be, then that's what it's going to become.
Awesome. And do you do paranormal, by the way, Justin?
I was just about to say, what about paranormal? Because you come to Haunted Hour a lot. So I feel like I'm forgetting about some paranormal activity in your home or something you've experienced. Oh, that's a secret.
I have not. I just recently moved, so.
Okay.
But if I remember, I can't recall a time where I've come across anything paranormal. I can say there was one time where I actually, a few years back, I got my mother a ghost watch, and we actually went to our local cemetery, and I walked around with the ghost watch, and I'm actually looking to try to pick something up, and you can just hear my mom in the background, aside from the wind blowing. Is there anybody here with us? Is there anyone here with us? And I'm just like, can you keep it down? Like, I'm trying to catch something here. But we didn't catch anything aside from the wind.
I love that.
That's kind of interesting. So you really are more about the horror, not so much the paranormal. Like, you don't go out and investigate, or I think that's a very interesting take as well. Like that your poetry is just truly based on horror, not necessarily paranormal experiences.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Well, cool. Dee, hopefully you will share, some of your darker poetry with us now that we know that that's out there. And,
I'll look for my haunted house poetry, see if I can find it. I have a briefcase, it's literally old and dusty, and I haven't opened it in years. So
Ooh, there you go. Justin, get yourself a really old little suitcase that you can sort of file that away. So down the road, you'll be like, look at these cool, like, I don't know, like to see how, and then to see, like, have you written poetry in a while, Dee? Like, have you sat down to?
No, I'm the type of person where if I sit there and I say, I want to write a poem, I've got nothing. Okay. I'll put out something that I'm like, no. But it's only when something, and like I said, it's usually when I'm distraught. So that's good. I haven't been distraught in a long time, and I hope to not be.
That's a good
But I would like to try it in a haunted location. I'd like to sit down in a haunted location and see if I can pull something in, or maybe with anime. I don't know.
Well, I was just going to say, wouldn't it be sort of interesting, as he was talking about his books, what if you did sort of figure out how could you tap into that what's behind the veil to write a story? Like, could you get something to come through? Again, I keep going back to Michael's his comment there, automatic writing. Could you do some sort of a story, even if it were a short story? Could you do something with automatic writing?
I'm going to try it.
I'm curious. I think I like that idea. All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing some more of your videos and some more of your topics that are coming up. How long does it take you to research when you pick a topic? Is it just a topic that just sort of interests you and you just know what you know about it? Or do you really dig in deep and do a lot of research? How do you come up, how much time do you put into those?
Usually it'll be a topic that I myself like, or
Okay.
and recently I've taken a lot of them from BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Okay.
So I like those guys, and I usually will research all of them, regardless of how
Okay.
much knowledge I have on the topic, just so that in
Okay.
case, yeah.
Do you try to find articles and books and movies and documentaries? Like, do you try to go out into those realms, or do you have a specific sort of path of information you like to follow when it comes to these things?
I usually like Google the topic and see what comes
Okay.
up
Okay.
and take the best articles from there. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, you never know. You Google something, you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, could be cannibalism, and you never know.
I'm going to be looking that up.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and watch now on the past movie. Like, I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of the movies that I've watched on that, because it is a very interesting and sad topic.
Yeah.
And find out like what some of these theories are, like how deep those theories could go.
I always thought that they said that they just, whatever reason, they integrated with the Native Americans, and like there's some people in that Native American tribe that have ancestry from Roanoke. So I thought it had been solved, or at least what I watched, they claimed it to be solved.
Yeah,
it kind of felt like that made sense,
Yeah,
it happens.
Even when something gets solved, right? Sometimes people just want to take
people
it
don't
that,
accept
like,
it.
Yeah, like that can't be it. Let's try another thing. And why not? It might bring you right back to what somebody already figured out, but it could open up some new doors. And we do have many new ways to discover these theories, right? And to test these theories out. So you never know what you could find. So guys, please go check out Justin's YouTube or his Instagram page. Check out his link tree there and see where you can find all his stuff. You can go to Amazon to find his book, his poetries, and his stories. Good luck to you, Justin, on your steampunk. I do love steampunk. Every time I see that Spirit Halloween, I'm not gonna lie, because the real stuff is expensive stuff. Let's not gloss over that. Steampunk is not a cheap endeavor. I'm just gonna put that out there.
A lot of times they make their own stuff. Like the cosplayers, they make their own stuff.
Yeah, you got to be very creative. So please go check out Justin's stuff. And guys, next week is Halloween. So I do know that KUNX, the NX network, is going to be doing a Halloween live special. The Blondes will be, we did a little pre-record to wish KUNX a very happy birthday. They're coming up on a birthday / anniversary of 1 year. So congratulations to KUNX. That's awesome. Good job, guys. Thank you for hosting the Blondes and making some of our new friends here on the network. That has been awesome. Dee, you're going to enjoy Halloween as Halloween is to be enjoyed, which is going out there and getting some trick-or-treating in. I love that.
I am.
That's right.
Anytime you can go out and have fun.
Enjoy it while you can. I will be hosting the Get Haunted crew, doing a live investigation. So if you guys are ever interested to see how we investigate over and Get Haunted, head on over to the Get Haunted YouTube and we'll check us out at 8 p.m. Eastern time to ? We don't know what. You guys call the shots on that investigation. You're going to give the challenges, the equipment, the experiments to our amazing crew, and spend the night at White Hill Mansion, which is an amazing location. So guys, thank you so much for spending your Monday night with us like you always do. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you so much, Travis. And we will see you not next Monday, but the following. We've got the amazing Cardsy B. She's awesome. You're going to love her. So stay tuned. We got a good November coming up. You guys have a fabulous night and we'll catch you in November.
Bye.
Night.